I tried making an intro for this video, but I thought it sucked, so... Here's my theory on regeneration. So, I was pondering about how regeneration worked. I decided to think about the actual perks of regeneration itself. What would a Time Lord gain from it? And then I was looking at all the cases of regeneration, and I noticed something. And, well, that's what my theory is. My theory is that regeneration is the single greatest defense mechanism a Time Lord could ever have. I know, sounds obvious, right? Well, I'm not talking about it in the sense that you're thinking of. But because I'm not so great at wording things, you're probably thinking, oh, it's of course it's a defense mechanism because, you know, it cheats death and all that. It stops them from dying when they're meant to, and there's a defense mechanism. And you'd be right. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Now, self-preservation is a goal that all life has, and, well, cheating death allows for self-preservation. However, it also would make the next incarnation better equipped to survive those situations. And if you still don't know what I mean, then allow me to use examples. I've got plenty of them. I've got loads of them, and we might as well look at the primary source of information regarding regeneration that we can observe, the Doctor. So we look to the 10th planet, where the Doctor's life energy was siphoned out by the planet Mondas, so regenerated because of fatigue, due to the extreme and fatal lack of energy. So, the Doctor regenerates into his second incarnation, who appears to be younger, but is also more energetic. So right, just brief, to put it brief, regeneration causes lack of energy, so the new incarnation has more energy. Got it? Good. As he has more energy in this new incarnation, he will not be able to regenerate in this way again, and if he is, he'll be better equipped to survive it. So he's less likely to succumb to regeneration because of this again. So I'm guessing you understand it by now. If you don't, there's still a lot of runtime. But yes, that's what my theory is. But a single example a pattern does not make. Sorry, I watched a video and I liked the way that sounded, so. We now turn to the war games. Even though I am a believer in the Season 6B theory, the cause of regeneration shown in the war games is still how the second Doctor canonically regenerated. Yes, so the Time Lords caught him and executed him because of the crimes he had committed. So how on Gallifrey could the second regeneration of the Doctor make him more well equipped for this situation? Well, the reason the Doctor regenerated is because he didn't respect authority. And the third Doctor respected authority more. The Doctor's still a rebellious type. He'd rather give orders than take them, but he's more respectful of authority, so probably won't get into too much trouble. As you can see, he works for the Time Lord sometimes still, and he works for UNIT. He has a boss in the form of the Brigadier. So, yeah, I would say that the regeneration worked. Now, two examples don't make a pattern either, but the Doctor's third regeneration is harder to fit in. The fourth Doctor and all the other future Doctors that this applies to aren't exactly immune to radiation, really, so... In fact, depending on how you want to see it, two of his future incarnations die because of regeneration. But I have 2 points. First, the Doctor found it hard to regenerate by himself, and needed help. The regeneration made it so that the Doctor would find it a lot easier to trigger regeneration when faced with radiation. Trust me, it's very hard to say. Secondly, the Time Lord that helped the Doctor regenerate, Campo Rinpoche, even said...
And it will shake up the brain cells a little. You may find his behaviour somewhat erratic.
So this means the regeneration won't be perfect, and it doesn't have to be. Like any other biological process, regenerations could probably fail. And if you allow me to imagine what that could entail, It could potentially lead to a crippled body, mental health issues, scarring, or even possibly erratic behaviour perhaps? Now, why wouldn't it cure radiation poisoning? Well, I believe that, again, allow me to use my imagination here, some things can just kill a Time Lord. There's no way of getting around it. And plus, us humans and other species on Earth do actually have regenerative abilities, just not to the extent of the Doctor's, because, let's say, if you get a cut, it heals, right? Regeneration to a Time Lord, right, compared to any other form of dying, is, like, any other form, let's call that a paper cut, but the radiation, let's call that a knife wound. You could survive a knife wound, but it's unlikely, and it would take a lot longer to heal, if at all. So, yeah, regeneration because of radiation would probably be difficult. Plus, it wouldn't make the Doctor immune exactly, so... Sheesh, that was a long one. But of course, one of them had to be annoying. Now, the 4th Doctor, the 5th Doctor. As you know, he kind of fell from a high place. Now, again, the next incarnation didn't take this into practice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Doctor didn't gain anything from this regeneration. Right, I can't believe I'm going to use this as evidence, but remember in the End of Time that the Doctor kind of fell from, like, very high up and survived. Okay, I like that explanation as much as you do, which is probably not at all. But at least it serves as evidence to support this theory. Yeah, I'm taking what I can get. Now it's time to look at the all-time classic, The Caves of Androzani! Now, I have to be honest, this one was tough, but after a lot of deliberation and discussion with Nick, I came up with something. So, it's safe to say the 5th Doctor wasn't very confrontational. He was timid, unlike his successor, who was brash, arrogant, and, well, confrontational. And that makes the 6th Doctor contrast with the 5th Doctor. And as the 5th Doctor went through so much trauma throughout his life, losing a companion, nearly losing a companion there, having his companions leave because it's too violent, and a lot of the stuff that happened within that season, it's safe to assume that the Doctor really needed toughening up, and that's what the regeneration gave him. A toughened up personality, which would mellow out over time, yeah, he's still a Doctor. Anyways, moving on to the 6th regeneration of the Doctor. Now, the actual cause of 6's regeneration is debated. Whether it's being injured in an attack by the Rani, bumping his head on the TARDIS console, or escaping the Valyard by intentionally going into a radiated area, 6 does not have a defined end. But in all honesty, he doesn't really need to in order for this theory to make sense. We only need to look at these examples, and they all have a common theme. Now, in all 3 of these scenarios, the Doctor wasn't exactly in control. You can see where I'm going with this based on the fact that the 7th Doctor is the chess master persona and controls literally everything. Yeah, I think I don't need to explain much more than that, to be honest. Now, as number 7 wasn't just one step ahead, he was a few light years ahead, why does he allow himself to get shot by that gang, which would lead to him having shoddy surgery and flatlining? Well, I have a story for you. Where's the nearest Doctor Who? But this isn't 7th Doctor, but let's just run with it. Once upon a time, there was a mysterious man in a mysterious blue box. He travelled through time, righting wrongs and doing good. But this was at a cost. Because you see, this man played dirty. He not only had to manipulate his foes, but his friends too. Soon after they had all left, died, or possibly worse, he ended up travelling alone, not wanting to let anyone else down, repenting for his sins. But he realised that in order to stop, he'd have to be a different man. So that fateful night in San Francisco, 1999, he manipulated events one final time. His own. So yeah, I mean, he was gunned down by a street gang. And yeah, he allowed himself to become the 8th Doctor. He was a lot kinder and more human, unlike his predecessor. I guess this was more of a mercy killing, because in order to continue being the Doctor, you know, like, wording continue on living differently as continuing being the Doctor. Not being himself was probably worse than living in his opinion. And in order to continue being the Doctor, he needed to be a lot nicer and kinder and not literally manipulate every single person he comes into contact with. So yeah, and in my personal headcanon, if the 7th Doctor continued down that path, and the Doctor in general continued down that path, yeah, he'd become the Valeyard. And the Valeyard is a threat to the Doctor's continuing existence, and therefore he needed to regenerate. Right, so the Night of the Doctor is a unique scenario. I'll recap it and explain it bit by bit. A ship crashes on the planet Karn, and the Doctor dies. He just dies. The Sisterhood of Karn proceeds to give the Doctor an elixir, which allows him to regenerate into a warrior, fit for the Time War. Right, so how can the Doctor die? Well, it is canon that a Time Lord can withhold the regenerative process, and in some cases, until death. So why would he want to die? Well, he wants to be remembered for sticking to his morals, and die with dignity. But why would he? Because the Time War is on, and he doesn't want to fight for obvious reasons, okay? Stop whining, okay? Okay? But anyways, the Sisters of Karn are as mysterious as the Time Lord, so are probably able to reanimate his body, and once they do, they give him the choice of how he'd want to regenerate, presumably as a way of having a synthetic version of the attribute my theory is describing, as dying might mess up the regenerative process a bit. So the Doctor had time to think and decided to become a warrior, so had his defense mechanism bypassed for the result to make him a warrior. But even if you accept the novelization of the Day of the Doctor to be canon for some reason, it even works without having to be an exception to the rule. Because you see, Ohelia just gives the Doctor a dry ice lemonade, and the Doctor's defense mechanism just goes off anyway. He wouldn't have died if he actually decided he wanted to fight in the Time War, would he? Now, the Doctor's 9th regeneration, the War Doctor to the 9th Doctor, is the most simplest to explain in terms of cause. Old age. But there's more to the defense mechanism theory than just that. Yes, the Doctor regenerates into a younger body because of old age. However, may I remind you that he's just been fighting in possibly the worst war in the history of the universe, and is meant to be under the impression that he killed his entire race. He needed a body that could deal with the grief. The 9th Doctor was grieving, yes, but his grief was handled in a healthy manner, plus his time with Rose helped him out, which possibly even bled into his next incarnation, where he had a romance with her. Speaking of, I hit another brick wall when it came to the Doctor's 10th regeneration. The reason why the 9th Doctor regenerated was a sacrifice to save Rose. The compassion is what killed him. So surely the defense mechanism would make it so that he wasn't as compassionate to Rose, right? Then it hit me. The cause of the regeneration itself. Energy from the time vortex. I would assume that something as powerful as the energy from the time vortex would damage a part of a time-sensitive's existence. And yeah, the defense mechanism would probably be a bit broken this time. So instead of making him less compassionate so that he wouldn't sacrifice himself to save Rose, he'd be more compassionate towards Rose because, you know, if something's broken, it doesn't do what it's meant to do. But yeah, I mean, it works, as he's the Doctor, so of course he would do that. So the next regeneration happens during the Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and I like that as much as you do, which, again, is probably not that much. This is the Doctor's 11th, and it's another interesting one. He gets shot by a Dalek! The Dalek blast triggers a regeneration. This isn't the last time the Doctor's hit by a Dalek ray, however, as in the Big Bang, he's hit again and does not die. I don't need to explain anymore, job's a good one. Now time for the Doctor's last natural regeneration, from the 10th Doctor to the 11th. In the End of Time, the Doctor saves Worf's life by absorbing Vinvoce radiation. As I said, Time Lords aren't immune to regeneration, but the Doctor was spending too much time worrying about some stupid prophecy. Although it may not have killed him this time, worrying about death might kill him some other time. So when he regenerated, he regenerated into a form that could enjoy the little life he had left to the fullest. And the 11th Doctor did this by channeling it through his friendship with Amy Pond and by extension Rory Williams as well. Now, we've reached the end of the Doctor's natural lifespan, but the Doctor regenerates in the time of the Doctor, as he is given a complete new life cycle. However, I feel like my theory shouldn't really apply in this situation, because his body doesn't naturally produce the regeneration energy. He's given enough energy for a new cycle, and thus fully regenerates. As his body can't process a new form or a new personality, it's just sort of factory reset. The Doctor's not quite sure of who he is. That explains his personality, and I've literally just come up with a way to explain his face. I do have some of it in my script, but now I've fully realised by just speaking. As the Doctor can't physically generate a new face and a new body, he decided to go with one that he had seen previously. One where he'd look at it and think, I know this face before, I've seen it before, I've seen it on someone who I saved. Which could have been loads of people, but he chose the face of Caecilius. It's in order to remind himself of what kind of man he is. Even though he sort of had that arc in the previous season, but oh well, we shall move on. As of when this video has released, we cannot tell how the Doctor's 14th regeneration affected them, or how the new incarnation that we call the 13th Doctor acts like, and how her body and or personality combats the situation that the 12th Doctor was in for when he regenerated. We'll just have to wait and see. Just in case you thought that, oh look, this only applies to the Doctor, well I have more examples, let's go through them. Another Time Lord that we know that's regenerated is Romana. Now, I do not know the full context of the other regenerations, as I have not read this book, or I've not listened to this audio. I will only mention the first regeneration we know of, which we're going to assume for the sake of argument and for the sake of, well, it just makes sense, it's her first regeneration. She just claims she wants to change, which, alright, that's fine. If a Time Lord wants to change, the Time Lord can allow regeneration energy to be formed. We've seen this with the Doctor giving regeneration energy to other people, and we can logically assume that a Time Lord can induce regeneration on themselves, because why not? And as this is an induced regeneration, the defense mechanism, that theory doesn't need to work. But that's only if we take it at face value, because according to the short story, The Lying Old Witch in the Wardrobe, in this, apparently Romana was actually damaged by the key to time, as that's an object with immense temporal power, like, you know, the energy of the time vortex. My voice is really going, oh my god. It wouldn't exactly make the whole defense mechanism in terms of personality trigger. However, the regeneration defaults to Princess Astra's body, which, you know, I mean, we've already established, if the defense mechanism can't work, Time Lord might as well be able to choose what their body looks like. Now, as it defaults to Princess Astra's body, you can't exactly be damaged by the key to time if, spoiler alert, you are a segment yourself. Although granted, she could have regenerated into Kroll if that's the case. Someone, write a story where Romana 1 regenerates into Kroll. However, there is a third possibility, and again, this is long. Now, I might stumble up in some places, because I've not finished listening to the second series of Gallifrey audios, and I haven't listened to the audio where this explanation, well, was explained for a good few months, so if I get anything wrong, please let me know. There was this Time Lord called Pandora. She was the first female president of the Time Lords, and she was a tyrant, so basically she was just as bad as Rassilon. After her dispersal, she manipulated Time Lord genetics in order to produce, well, Romana, essentially. A vessel in order for her to come back and become the Imperatrix once more. Romana regenerated in order to subconsciously protect herself against Pandora. The personality aspect of the regeneration is that she thinks that she is going to regenerate of her own will, even as far as getting to pick her own body. And picking the bodies works in a physical sense. The forms that she took could have been able to allow her to defend herself from being the Imperatrix, and choosing the body of an important historical figure of the planet's history will get rid of Pandora somehow. But then she sort of became the Lady President of Gallifrey, so that wasn't so good. Oh well, I'm sure she'll be fine. Time to look at our final Time Lord for the day. The Master. Ooh. Again, the Master has had quite a few regenerations, but I'm only going to be looking at the ones from New Who today. Simply because, well, with Delgado's incarnation, we don't know who he regenerates into. Ainley's regeneration is, well, an unnatural one. And I've not read the Virgin New Adventures, so I wouldn't know. I have not read the comics featuring the child incarnation of the Master that fought during the Time War, nor have I read the comic where he regenerates into Jacoby. But we've got 2 regenerations ready and waiting to be sorted. Now, Jacoby's Master actually does say something interesting before regenerating.
If the Doctor can be young and strong, then so can I.
This is telling us that basically he wants to be young. Time Lords can actually choose what they want to look like. They have some say in it. And again, the 11th Doctor had say in his regeneration, but this also makes sense. As if the Master was indeed young and strong, he would not have been killed by Chantho. As to why he's mad and insane in the Riddler kind of way, sometimes personality changes don't need to be explained, like with the first Doctor and the second Doctor. Now, we've got another interesting one. Sim into Gomez. As Missy just stabbed her predecessor, now I guess we could use the logic of, in order to not be killed, be the killer yourself. Or I guess it's a sort of predestination paradox type thing. Whereas the next incarnation exists and your body knows it exists, then you might as well turn into them, you know? Also, Missy did it because she remembers it being done to her previous incarnation by her, so... God, this is confusing. But I've got an explanation I actually thought of that isn't just weak. Because of the fact that Sim's Master didn't stand with the Doctor, he got killed for it. So he regenerated into an incarnation that would stand with the Doctor. Missy. Now, the Master's bound to come back someday. I mean, let's face it, even though the Master is currently deceased, the Master will always come back. As long as the writers want to bring back the Master, they'll bring back the Master, and who doesn't want to bring back the Master? If Gomez's incarnation did regenerate, I feel like she would turn into an incarnation that would not stand with the Doctor, because Sim's Master killed her because she was standing with the Doctor. But that's just speculation. So here ends my video, talking about my theory. I hope it made sense. And if you feel free to ask questions if you want. I'm very happy to answer them in the comments. If you like more of this kind of video, I suggest giving this a like. And because it's what you do here on YouTube, mentioning, like, commenting and subscribing, please subscribe as well. Also, if you don't want to miss a video that we've made, make sure to ring the notification bell and make sure it notifies you all the time and not sometimes. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.